Wichita Liberty TV, featuring host Bob Weeks. Local politics without the spin. Interviews with nationally respected economists. Hear directly from Kansas conservatives about what matters to you. It's individual liberty, limited government, and free markets. Wichita Liberty TV.
Hello, I'm Bob Weeks for Wichita Liberty TV, your weekly source for news, analysis, and commentary about Kansas and Wichita government affairs and politics. We're broadcast on Great Plains Television. That's channel 26.1, Sunday mornings at 8:30 and repeated again at 4:30 in the afternoon. Also, my site, The Voice for Liberty, that's on the internet at wichitaliberty.org. You'll find all the old episodes of Wichita Liberty TV there, all the other material that I and others create on almost a daily basis, show notes about the episodes, all the old episodes, everything you want to know pretty much I think is right there. So, this week, our guest is Dave Cunningham. He's the founder and chief executive officer of Flint Hills Group, which is a software consultancy here in Wichita. He has a lot of experience in the IT industry, working with businesses and customers. And today, we'd like to talk a little bit about living safely in an online world. So, Dave, welcome to Wichita Liberty TV, and of course, co-host Karl Peterjohn with us here today. So, it seems in the past month or so there's been a lot of attention in the general news given to some particular threats that are attacking people's computers, people and companies, and holding their data hostage for ransom. What can you tell us about how these things are? What's the danger? How do they work? What can people do to protect themselves?
Sure, Bob. As I've talked to customers, we're typically going out and trying to sell software solutions to customers, and as we're understanding their problems and what they're dealing with, this has been something that's consistently come up in at least 50 or 60% of the customers that we talk to is ransomware. And the reality is ransomware is everywhere. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about ransomware, and when you think about it, if you're a business owner and your company has been hacked into by bad guys on the other side of the world, which is what happens, and potentially your data is held hostage, you can't function as a company for hours to days, is that something you really feel comfortable sharing with your customers or the public? It's probably not. You're actually going to hide that as much as you can.
So we may not even be aware of the full extent of what's happening there. And of course, companies might want to hide this because we hear stories about Target, for example, a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Their data was stolen from them about their customers, and that breeds distrust, I think.
Right. You typically think when you go into your big box stores, Target, that there's a lot of trust built up there. They're constantly asking for your email, for your, do you want to sign up for these credit cards? And you're really volunteering a lot of private information, maybe your social security number, your bank account number, and there's this assumed trust that, well, it'll be safe. That is not really the case. Bad guys want to get a hold of that data constantly for identity theft. It's really almost always about trying to get your money or the company's money.
So in some of these cases, people are stealing customer data from Target. I hate to pick on them because they're not the only one, because then they can use it to create identity theft, and they can use that to generate money and create money through fraudulent activity. But some of these ransomware attacks operate a little bit differently. Right. How are they different, Dave?
So, for so many years we'd heard about viruses getting on your computers or malware, and I would equate that to really a technology vandal. My wife or my kids would ask me, why would someone hack into a computer and harm the computer? What's the point of that? It's like, well, why would kids throw eggs at a house or break windows with a rock? It's kind of a vandal mentality. Ransomware is different. So with ransomware, they want something out of you. They figured out that, well, we can hack into the computers. What if we take all the data on that computer and encrypt it so that they can't get that data unless they give us money, and then we'll give them a software key that unencrypts the data.
Password, so to speak.
That's right. So they basically hold you hostage. It's pretty common for these types of things to happen by what they call a phishing email. That's probably the #1 reason. Every one of us has probably seen something in our email, or maybe I'm getting a lot from Macy's right now personally, telling me that my account needs to be reset and to click on this link. And pretty much every time you get an email from a bank, from a big box store, from a credit card company that wants you to click on a link, you just need to stop yourself right there and say, maybe that's real, and if it is real, I'm going to go out to their website with my login, and they'll tell me if I have a problem. And to date, every time I've tried that, there's never been a problem. Every one of those instances is a phishing email trying to hack into your system.
And by phishing, that word is spelled with PH typically today, but the analogy to phishing is pretty much apt because these companies, I'm sorry, not the companies, the bad guys, the bad actors are sending out these emails hoping to trick people into entering something like their username and password into a bogus website so that that information can then be used to commit some sort of crime.
Right.
Yeah, and it used to be in the old days you'd be able to recognize these. They were just clumsily crafted. They are often had misspelled words. You could tell that they were written by people, maybe Nigerians or some are talking about the prince you left over there. But today, some of them are actually quite sophisticated and difficult to tell. So we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to ask Dave Cunningham, what can people do, companies also do, to protect themselves from these types of attacks? Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks with co-host Karl, Peterjohn, our special guest Dave Cunningham this week. So Dave, someone at home or work, they get one of these phishing emails and they fall victim to it, and even sophisticated people like Hillary Clinton's campaign staff can do that type of thing. So if they fall victim to the phishing email, what might happen to them in the case of these ransomware attacks?
That's a great question, and actually when you start to dwell on this, it's actually it's really scary how this works. So they'll click on that phishing email and they may not really notice what's happened. So it's infected their computer, and depending on how their IT staff or whoever controls their systems have controlled their computers, they may actually be all set up to have like an admin or a super user capability. Hopefully that's not the case. Many small to medium businesses do this because it makes it easier for them to be able to operate and to be able to install software. They don't have to call their IT guy in to get permission. So they all want it to be as easy as possible. But what you've really done in that case is enabled the bad guy, if they get into one place, they can spread like wildfire to the whole computer system. So it gets into one computer, and its intent is to spread in a virus way as far and as broad as possible before it activates itself. And a lot of times it'll have a clock ticking to where it's going to activate itself like a Friday evening, typically after everyone's gone home for the weekend. So it may have spread to all of your desktops, all of your laptops, all of your servers, and it's just sitting there waiting for Friday at 8 o'clock. Everyone goes home, and it immediately starts encrypting all the data on all those systems that it's made itself to. The other scary thought is that may have taken a couple of days, and now it's in your backup system on top of it, where you thought that was safe. It encrypts itself all weekend long, and after a computer's encrypted, typically a screen similar to something like this will pop up, and it basically is informing the user that your data has been taken hostage, and they have countdown clocks on them saying, if you don't pay this information, if you don't pay it, usually in Bitcoin, by a certain time, the ransom is going to increase, and if you don't pay it by a certain time, we're never going to give you your data back. So the scariest thing that happens for a business owner is to come in at 7 a.m. Monday morning, and this screen is on all their desktops, all their laptops, all their servers, and they have no access to any of their data. At that point, a lot of human emotion starts to take over. And you can imagine, it's like, oh my gosh, well, do we even have things backed up? And if we do, what we found a lot of times is they'll have the servers backed up, but they don't have the desktops or the laptops backed up. So there's a lot of communication. What did you store, Bob, on your laptop? Mary, what's on yours? And people start to realize a lot of very valuable customer or company data is on things that may not have been backed up. And their temptation is to immediately go on here and pay the ransom. It's like you have a gun at your head and you feel like you have to do something. And that's exactly what these people want, is they want to create an emotional response where you give them the money. It's a whole crazy process when you get into this system to pay the money in Bitcoin.
And for the people who have decided to pay the ransom, is it usually successful? In other words, do the thieves follow through on their promise to restore, well, to give you what you need to recover your data?
That's a great question. And the advice used to always be to pay the ransom and to get your data back. Mm-hmm. And our experiences have been either they paid the ransom, and this is big ransom money, like in the $20,000 to $30,000 range for a small business, huge dollars. And even the amount of time it takes to get all this is days. It's not like they just snap this back to you in 5 minutes and you're up and running in an hour or two. It's usually days you're down. But in some cases, customers or companies that we talked to, they didn't engage with us and they restored from backup successfully. Mm-hmm. The reality is these are thieves on the other side of the world that are usually in a country that has no extradition with the United States. They don't really care to do something nice for you. They want your money. Mm-hmm. It's really not their primary concern to get you the key back. They just want the money. And in some cases, some of these bad guys can't get you a key. Mm-hmm. They may have a domain server, or may have a server, an email server where they're communicating with you. And if enough feds realize that this ransomware is in place, they will shut down those domain servers. And now you've just severed the ability for them to send the key back to you.
Wow.
So they may not be able to send it back. They may be bad guys that have just copied software that can encrypt, but they have no capability to produce a key. Mm. So the advice we give people, the first advice is don't pay the ransom, and that's counterintuitive. The second piece of advice, and people don't think about this, but call the FBI. The FBI, they'll come in, they'll send an agent to your business, they'll collect information off your computers. They actually won't fix your problem.
Mm-hmm. I mean, their objective is to potentially find the criminal and prosecute, perhaps.
Right, right.
Karl, you were talking about the difference between home users and business users. Refine that, if you will.
Well, Dave, I think for the viewers out there, if they're operating with their own PC, or maybe they've got a server and several computers in their home, and that's increasingly the case, I think, for a lot of families, what sort of risk do they have compared to a business, and should they respond the same way you described for businesses?
Karl, that's a great question. We're going to ask Dave to hold on until after our next commercial break, and we will get the answer to that question. We'll be back in a moment. Well, welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV again. I'm Bob Weeks with co-host Karl Peterjohn and our special guest, Dave Cunningham of Flint Hills Systems. Karl, your question again, reprise that for the audience.
Well, for audience purposes, let's compare the differences between on a personal basis, if you have this happen, versus a business. And is any idea in terms of the scale of how much this is a problem for personal users versus, say, business users here in the United States? I mean, it's a worldwide problem, but
right.
I mean, for the U.S. aspect of it, I think would be the key for most of the folks watching this broadcast.
Yep, that's a great question. And of course, through Flint Hills Group, when we're talking to customers, we're usually talking about company situations, but it applies to individuals too. The bad guys actually have software, automated software that's trying to do this. They actually don't really know or care whether they're trying to hack into a business or a person. So people get hit by this also. But when you think about the potential payback out of an individual versus a company, it's very different. So typically the WannaCry was a huge piece of ransomware that was in the news a month or two ago. And their typical demand was $300 per system. So at home, you might have one or two computers where they're asking for $300, and you might not have any backups. You might be either just be without the data, I'm not going to live with it, or maybe you pay it. At a company that might have 100 PCs times $300 and then all the servers, that adds up in a big fat hurry to the amount of money. The other thing to know is this is big, big business. There's a graphic that I brought that is really an eye chart, but in reality this is 2010, and these little blips are instances of ransomware. This is 2017, and each month the number of cases of ransomware types is more than what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years combined. Mm-hmm. This business now is as big as, I was trying to think of a company that makes a ton of money, Yeti. You know about Yeti, and when Yeti coolers, everyone knows that they're selling tons of those, they make lots of money. They make $1 billion every year, and that's how big the ransomware business is $1 billion.
But Dave, that chart you just showed shows exponential growth.
Yes.
And we're spending a huge amount of money on software for firewalls and all other means of protection. It seems like we're losing the battle, aren't we?
Well, and the target for this is small to medium businesses. Unfortunately, because they have the least capability to protect themselves, the smallest budgets, the smallest staff. They may not have a firewall. They may not have education to their users on how to avoid those phishing emails we talked about. They may not have good backup practices.
But let me play devil's advocate here, because you've got a lot of businesses that are trying to attract people to come to their site, to click on a whole variety of things that are there. You've got governmental bodies. They have public information that they want out there, but they also have constraints in that they have sometimes secure information that they don't want out either. And so I know Sedgwick County, we literally had thousands and thousands of attempts daily to breach our system. So what you're showing here is kind of a exponential problem in terms of growth that really doesn't get much attention in today's environment, and is, I think, a huge risk as we proceed into the digital age of the 21st century.
I agree, and actually in the government level they know this too. So a huge percentage of jobs in the U.S. economy are small to medium business jobs. Small to medium businesses are the biggest target that pays the price for ransomware. And a very alarming statistic from the Small Business Development Center, it's a government statistic, is that of the small to medium businesses that get attacked by a cyber attack like this, after 6 months, 60% of them don't survive.
Yeah, it can definitely be fatal to a company without their data. They just don't know, your accounts receivable. Some of your customers are going to go ahead and pay, but probably not everybody. And certainly if you were factoring those, you don't have the collateral anymore as well. Dave, what can people and companies do to protect themselves or to get ready to recover from an attack like this?
Right. So that is the best question to be asking, is how can we be proactive about this? We try to really push this with Flint Hills Group. Backup procedures and policies is incredibly crucial. There are things you can do with your desktops and your laptops to where you save the data on a shared drive, like on a server area that automatically gets backed up. There's very simple things that Flint Hills Group can help people do to get in place. Companies can do this very easily. Restricting down access on computers. It's really a way of, if someone does get hacked, you've restricted the problem to one computer. That is incredibly valuable. Educating people on a regular basis about phishing emails and bad websites you shouldn't be going to. A chain is as strong as its weakest link.
But it's so easy for it to be broken, and so would a bigger problem be people doing silly things? I know a very prominent person who, as his password he used was password. And or clicking on an attachment from somebody, whether it was somebody who they did know or it was misrepresented that they did know them, and it was actually part of a phishing scheme. So I think you've got different corrective measures if you're in the small business in terms of trying to handle that between those two examples.
Right. So one thing I'll say on the passwords is that there's some things you can do to make password management much easier that people don't know about. There are password storage programs that are completely free for your cell phone. LastPass is a free one that's very well adopted. You should never be using the same password over and over again. You should never use passwords with real words in it, or your own name, or Dave123, or Flint Hills Group 123. Those are some of the quickest things that the bad guys guess.
And the danger is, if you reuse the same password, oftentimes what goes along with the password is your login name, which is very commonly your email address, which is not a secret. And if they found out your password at one site, then they can try it again at other sites as well. And that's why these password management programs are pretty popular and I think important. Let's take a final commercial break this week for Wichita Liberty TV. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks, our co-host Karl Peterjohn, and our computer security expert Dave Cunningham from Flint Hills Group. We've talked about making backups. How do people go about doing that? Let's say the casual user at home. I have to tell you, I use something called Mozy, which is it's an online backup service. I think for free you get a small amount. I pay to have a little bit more amount, but you set that up, and then several times a day, if it sees new or modified files, boom, there they go to the Mozy servers, and that seems a pretty good thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would agree. The average person isn't savvy enough to do manual steps to copy things up. Mozy's great because it's automatic. Carbonite, I mean, people heard these ads.
There are many similar companies.
Right.
And even like Apple has iCloud, which is something for your iPhone. You can get your iPhone stuff backed up to iCloud.
Right.
And so if you lose your phone, which of course is a very thing that happens all the time, then you've got your stuff up in iCloud.
And that's actually a beautiful thing about the phones, is that many of these have the automatic cloud vaulting type of capability where all your photos and everything can be sent up to the cloud. So even if this phone gets dropped, destroyed, lost, dropped in the ocean, you still get that data back. We were talking about some of the password protection programs. One of the things I always tell people is make sure you get one that actually stores an encrypted file in the cloud. Now, my first experience when I used one of those on a phone was great because I could create unique passwords, complex passwords for everything.
Didn't have to remember them.
Did not have to remember them. A lot of times they'll actually plug it in automatically.
Right.
But then my phone fizzled out on me and I couldn't get that data back because it didn't store it up in the cloud, and I had to go recreate all those from scratch.
Yeah.
So the new program I use actually
the one
does it
I use, Dashlane, just to plug it, is it runs on both my phone and my desktop computers and synchronizes between the two. I think I pay $20 a year for that synchronizing ability. But then, so like my Facebook password is synchronized between my phone and my desktop and my tablet and whatever else I might have. So what about two-factor authentication? You see something like that from time to time. Popular things like Google, Facebook, Twitter are starting to make use of that. What is that, and should people make use of that?
So two-factor is a way to add one more step into the authentication. You know, when you think about it right now, you need to have two pieces of information. You need someone's login and you need someone's password.
And the login is usually their email address or maybe their name, something like that. The password is the secret.
Right. It's usually, and unfortunately people use passwords like their dog's name. That's easy to guess that. Two-factor will actually send a code to, say, like your mobile phone, and you'll get a text, and it'll be like a 7-digit number. You have to enter it in, and unless someone stole your phone too, that makes it that much more complicated to get this in there. I think we're going to enter a point though where passwords are going to change. It's not going to be something we type in the future. It's going to be an interaction that you have with a computer that is much easier and more fluid. They already have some things now where they'll show you a grid of pictures and they'll say, pick out all the pictures with a school bus in it.
And those are typically to distinguish between humans and robots that are trying to break into systems. But I'm thinking of on the iPhone, and I know on Android phones too, there's fingerprint recognition. So a lot of times instead of doing a password, you just touch your fingerprint and that provides the authentication.
Right. The fingerprints work. I've done that on my phone. What's interesting is your fingerprint dynamic changes over time. So you think it'd be perfect forever. Retina is another thing. Some things are using the cameras to look at your retina. But I think we're going to see passwords, the whole password concept is going to change, where it's going to get more complex but easier for the user interface with a person. And that's what we all really complain about with passwords, is the difficulty level.
And you know, you may have chosen a strong password. By that I mean one lengthy with different characters, uppercase, lowercase, or whatever. But then what do a lot of companies do for password recovery? They ask you to make up some questions like, what is your mother's maiden name, is the most famous one. You may remember in 2008, the vice presidential nominee, Sarah Palin, her Yahoo emails were broken into because the password recovery question was her mother's maiden name. She was truthful on that, and of course a well-known person, you're going to be able to know that. So I'll tell you what I do. For me, my mom, my wife, others I help out with, we make up a name for our mother's maiden name. That's nothing related to us. Is that a good idea, do you think?
That's actually an excellent idea. All it comes down to is, can you provide an answer to a question that only you would know?
Right.
And when you realize that's all that matters, it should never be something that someone else can guess. And that's what you just described.
And you know, nowadays they'll let you do things like, what's your favorite color? What was the first concert you went to?
First car.
But you know, on Facebook, there are these things where say, hey, what concerts have you been to? And people are listing all these concerts, and that could potentially be used for identity theft.
It absolutely could. I agree. We're going to see things change dramatically. It will be easier, but we're in a very difficult transition right now. And during this time, people are taking advantage of us and companies, and that's really what this whole thing is about.
And so we've talked a lot about protecting our data that we have in custody, but we're out of time. But just briefly, a lot of the way data is stolen is like we talked about before. It's stolen from companies we do business with. So it's not your fault at all. And you may say, okay, I just won't have credit cards or anything. But there are a lot of agencies that you have a non-optional relationship with, like the federal government, particularly the Social Security Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Kansas Department of Revenue, and so forth like that. Data is stolen from them. My data at the Office of Management and Budget from the days when I had a government security clearance, it's in China. That means my fingerprints are in China too as well. So it's a difficult problem sometimes. So Karl, thanks for being here today. Dave Cunningham of Flint Hills Group, appreciate very much what you've done for us, and we'd like to see you again next week on Wichita Liberty TV. Thanks for watching.